the tensor rings have different frequencies. And these frequencies, depending on what they are, have different reactions in the physical body and the energetic body. We've actually found that we have enough tensor rings to cover all of the chakras and more. And like the one that Slim Sperling first brought in was more of a root chakra, physical body tensor ring. And then he brought in the heart chakra, which was one of those tensor ring, which is emotional, etheric body, DNA repair.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where influential conscious leaders come to share the real stories behind their spiritual journeys and how they're helping others awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I want to share with you a wonderful conversation with Peter Benson. He's the founder of Energies of Service. We talk about his career path and how he began as a mechanic for 15 years, then transitioned as a technical engineer for 20 years, and then he began to ask questions about consciousness, about who am I? He started exploring near-death experiences and wondering, is what I'm seeing in this three-dimensional reality all that there is? And he came to some very powerful conclusions. In the process, he had a message come to him through a practitioner, a message that came through Archangel Metatron, calling Peter to create, to handcraft anklets, and then ultimately pendants that would clear and balance your energies. And so we talk all about these incredible spiritual energetic tools that he creates. We go in depth into his step-by-step process. He shows us up close what they look like right underneath the camera. It's a wonderful conversation. I know you're going to love it. So, hey, if you enjoy spiritual conversations that go beyond the surface, you are in the right place. And I would encourage you to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And then, if you enjoy the conversation, share it with a friend, somebody who would enjoy learning about Peter and these incredible energetic tools that he creates. All right, let's dive into my conversation with Peter Benson. Well, Peter, it is great to be with you today. Thank you so much for taking time to hang with us.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
I want to hear a bit about your story. 15 years is what I have read as a master mechanic, and then life dramatically shifted for you. Maybe talk to us about life prior to awakening, prior to the shift, and then what was the thing that brought this massive change about in your life?
Well, yes, I was a mechanic for 15 years, A.S.E. master technician for a majority of that. That's always learning as you go. I went back to school for computer science, and then started shifting over into silicon, semiconductor stuff. And I was in the semiconductor industry for 20 years.
Wow.
So between those two things, I did a lot of hands-on work, diagnostics, understanding things, being more of a conscious, common sense kind of how do you find a solution? And then when you get into semiconductor and engineering, and I wasn't an engineer, I was an engineering technician. So I was the person that with the common sense telling the engineer, yes, the specs say the machine will do this. And I'm telling you, no, it won't. And they're saying, oh, yeah, prove it to me. And then we go through weeks of testing and testing and testing. And then we end up being right. But that's just the way that works. And through all of that, about 2015, 2016, 2017, I started reading Dolores Cannon, Michael Newton, Brian Weiss, for the regressions, the near-death experiences. When you get Michael Newton stuff where it's the structure of everything behind life. When you pass, what is on the other side? And he talks about structures, and I started just thinking, it's like, is this really just what, it's like, if this is real, this is just an illusion. This is just a schoolhouse.
Yeah.
So it started shifting my thought process.
And were you just a curious, like, you seem to me like you're just a curious lifelong learner. And did something just kind of motivate you to go down that path and you started digging?
Well, life happens, and I was going through a family restructuring, and I needed to rediscover who I was, and this gave me the opportunity, and everything just lined up.
Mhm.
It literally lined up perfectly, to the point where I was, going out doing meditations and sound baths and trying to understand what this modality, spiritualism really was, trying to figure out, it's like, okay, if I am this higher being having this experience,
Mhm.
what is this? It's like trying to understand it more.
Mhm.
Yes, because I come from a very dense 3D background. Feeling energies is very minimal for me still, even to this day. I can still feel the tools, but it's very minimal. And when I experience it through others, through clients who have actually purchased them, they're like, "Oh my God, this is so powerful." I'm like, "Well, I'm glad it's helping you." I can feel it a little, just not as much as you can, which is awesome. Um, yeah, it was a real progression through the sacrifices and the learning and trying to figure out who I was again. Uh, and then coming through it all, it was actually quite the process. It's not something I would give up. It was a hard lesson.
Mhm.
The biggest thing for me out of all of it, after getting through it, was actually forgiveness.
Mm.
Forgiving myself and forgiving others that transgressed against,
Mm.
and not to be spiritual in any way. So, preaching in any way. That's for me. That was the toughest part. And
Mm.
once I actually achieved that, things didn't bother me quite as much when it came to other aspects of my life.
Mm. Mhm. And so, talk to me about this question that I've read that was at the center of this rediscovery is who am I? Um, like, what made you ask that question? Like, what? Why was that an important question for you?
Well, it came into it as as the Dolores, as the near death experience books were trying. It's like, who are you? It's like, who am I? And through all those books, they're always saying it's like we are all one. I'm like, well, okay, that's the spiritual mantra. Great. Now what? Now I have to go find a guru and figure out what's going on. And through all those books, it actually goes, no, you really need to go back into self and understand that everything is self. What do you want to call it? Self focused. Let's just put it in the way of when you understand your frequency, who you are, and can change the way you think, you can change the life you're living just by changing that. It's almost as if you're changing, like you're on a train, you're going in one direction, and it's like, you know what? I feel like I don't think this way anymore. I don't feel this way anymore. I'm going to take this rail and take a different direction on my life.
Mhm.
And it changes the way you feel. It changes the way the world comes to you, and it just changes everything. So when you start understanding who you are on that focus, it's really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, so it's for me, it was when I started understanding who I was, which I still can't. It's like when you're asked, "Who are you?" I'm like, okay, I really can't answer that question.
Mhm.
Because it's one of those movie lines. It's like, "Who are you?" Well, I am a doctor. No, no, not what you do. Who are you? Well, I'm a father. No, not that you have a family. Who are you? And it's like, I still can't answer that question.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know I am part of source. So I guess that is the answer.
Yeah. Hmm. So one of the things that I have found interesting as I continue down this spiritual path, and I love how you said, you kind of went down into meditations and sound baths. I always tell people the beginning of my awakening was this gateway drug of sound baths. It just kind
Yep.
of opened me up to all sorts of different things. But there are all of these tools and resources that are part of this spiritual experience, whether it's oracle decks or tarot cards or crystals. But for you, tensor rings were
Yeah.
something that was important to you. Was that an initial tool that you had come across or discovered, or were there other things before that that led to tensor rings?
When I was researching Dolores Cannon and looking for interviews with her,
Hmm.
doing a YouTube search, I found a couple videos on slim spurling
Hmm.
and tensor rings. So I ended up doing okay, so what are tensor rings? I got his book, In the Mind of a Master, and there's another one as well. And it just describes his entire journey, his path, how he found all of the tensor rings, the process of discovery, and then through other people understanding the energies of them. Because like me, as an engineering technician type person like he is, it's like I don't have the super sensitive feeling.
Hmm.
But like Slim Sperling says in his book, the first time they put a tensor ring together and welded it, there happened to be somebody sensitive in the room, and all of a sudden they jump back and like, what was that?
Hmm.
So it's like when you discover something that having somebody that's super sensitive does help.
Hmm.
So my path started there, and then I found there's a couple other and other not necessarily inventors, implementers of the technology because Slim Sperlin open sourced it to everybody. So
Hmm.
there's some people in the U.S., people in Australia, and they're everywhere around the world, using these. And through them, I understood how to create them, and that was my path. I did that during the transition period when I was actually discovering who I was, um, and when I was going through sound baths, because there's actually a tensor ring. It's called Solomon's Temple Qubit, and it actually changes the color of sound.
Hmm. Would you
And
would you mind just telling people, for if someone's not familiar with, like, what is a tensor ring? Do you happen to have one handy nearby that you could hold up that you could?
a tensor ring,
Ah, nice. Okay. And that's one that you've personally made.
yes,
Okay.
yep, and yeah, it's basically it's the wire welded back onto itself right up here. So as the wire spins and it gets back to the side, you have to make sure you have to count the wires all the way around and make sure it actually welded back onto itself back at that point. And
Mhm.
that's what makes these energetic. Well, tensor rings are quite simply a single wire um, folded over and then twisted clockwise, and with an intention to create energies of the highest and best good for everybody when you're twisting. Uh, at that point, you actually cut them to their specific length, which creates a frequency. Just like on the radio dial, when you go to like 93 FM or 101 or 107 FM, you have different frequencies in them. The tensor rings have different frequencies. And these frequencies, depending on what they are, have different we want to call it reactions in the physical body and the energetic body. Um, we've actually found that we have enough tensor rings to cover all of the chakras and more. Um, and like the one that Slim Sperling first brought in was more of a root chakra, physical body tensor ring. And then he brought in the heart chakra, which was one of those tensor ring, which is emotional, etheric body, DNA repair. And then he brought in which one was it? I think it was a solar plexus, empowerment. So the different tensor rings create different frequencies. And what they do to you is actually help clean that energy frequency out. So depending on what you're needing, like if you're having insecurity with either, you know, home situation or family or whatever it is that would create you instability in your foundation, in your root, that tensor ring would be helpful in that manner. It helps clear the muck, the garbage, the negative energies associated.
Mhm. And these tensor rings could be anywhere from, very small
Yes.
to huge
Huge.
hoops that are like, what's the largest tensor ring that you have seen or know of?
The largest one I've made was, I think it was 10 feet across.
Wow.
So it was huge. And it was actually one of the one way vortex tensor rings that I created in that way. And when when I finished the braze on that one, that's the one I literally jumped out of when it turned on. It's like, holy, it's like I jump out. It was like, yeah, it was that strong. So they are powerful in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about them, so we've talked about the energy of them, but not necessarily the technology side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's a tensor ring, and they have different frequencies, and they impact you. It is a copper ring. So that copper ring generates a torus energy field, just like we do. Heart math shows that we generate this very large torus energy field from our heart chakra, and that expands out infinitely. They've never found a limit to it. They've only measured out to 12 feet. So we don't know how large that gets. But the tensor rings create that torus energy field on the outside, and on the middle and inside, like when you're blowing soap bubbles, that soap film inside that ring,
Mm-hmm.
the tensor rings create an energy field in the middle of that tensor ring as well. So when you have a larger one, you can actually pass items through it, and that will actually clear energies out of items when you actually pass them through a tensor field. It resets them.
Hmm.
So if somebody had negative energies associated with, or a traumatic event associated with, let's say, teddy bear, you could clear the energies from that teddy bear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the experience of you channeling a message from Archangel Metatron
Okay.
about these anklets. I believe this your first tool that, besides the tensor rings, that you felt called to make?
Yes. This message at that particular point in time, because I was still early in my shift,
Mm-hmm.
that message came through another. And then as I was going through the process of designing and building them, that's when Metatron started coming in directly, and Michael, Gabriel, and Shemuel. Um, but the message directly from Metatron was, I need you to create anklets using a tensor ring and putting these 5 crystals in it, and it has to be encased in a copper mesh.
Okay, so real quick, we oftentimes will pass by like, yeah, I was getting this message from Metatron and da da da. It's like, what was going on in your life at the time? Had you been introduced to channeling? Was this a channeling experience? Was this something just coming into your mind during meditation? How did you get this message?
This message was, I was going through an energy healing. So I was in the beginning of healing myself from the traumas I was going through. And the lady I was working with, we had just finished wrapping up. She had finished talking about all the things that we'd cleared and worked on, and some of the things we still needed to work on. That's normal. And we were finishing up. She goes, I have a message from Metatron. And I'm like, who? I have no idea who that was. It was outside of my lexicon at that point. I didn't really know. If you had said Archangel Michael, yes, I would have. It's like, oh, an Archangel. Yeah, I recognized that name. Metatron, I hadn't recognized. I'm like, okay, what does he got to say? And that's when he gave the message, and came through her. She was more sensitive at the time, and he basically says, you need to do this.
To create
And
these anklets,
correct.
yeah, with the copper mesh
Yep.
and crystals embedded in them.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
There's
and
5 crystals.
what was the purpose? Like when that message came through, was the purpose connected to it, or just, hey,
Oh
you
yeah.
need to create this?
Once he actually gave me it's like, this is what it needs to be. And he goes, this will keep your frequency yours as we go through this time. And that was the direct quote. Um,
This will keep your frequency yours.
yours. Yes. So when you utilize these, it's like, let's just say, um, you come out of a meditation and you're feeling really good. You end up I got to go to the grocery store to pick up some stuff. Then the minute you start bumping into people that are having a bad day, all of a sudden that feel good feeling is gone, because now you just intercepted everybody else's energies. That's what these do. They protect your field. It basically doesn't allow anybody else's muck to interfere with you. So
Mhm.
you're allowed to keep your own frequencies yours. Now, this doesn't stop you from changing your own frequencies through mental reaction. That's called self control.
Yes, yes. Do you
If you
happen to
can, hmm?
I was just gonna ask you to hold one up. Do you happen to have one handy?
Let me do a quick switch here.
So that's copper mesh in the entire thing or just in the center?
Well, it's if you look right here, this is a
Mhm.
copper. It's a flattened copper loop right here,
Mhm.
and then inside of here we have a plastic seal that keeps the copper mesh closed up on either side, and that's black. And then we have a plastic cover over this to keep protects the copper mesh.
Mm.
And that's important to keep on because the copper mesh is extremely fine copper, and
Mhm.
it snags on things and it breaks through wear, and it actually becomes very, when you want to call it, pokey, because it's
Mhm.
actually little wires will stick out.
Mhm.
And the more exposed it becomes, the faster it will actually oxidize.
Mm. And so this
Whether
can stretch and kind of fit different ankle sizes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, if I've had it for I had a football player that wanted them, and I didn't have the size. I'm sorry, I just didn't. I mean, his ankles were the size of my arms, and I just couldn't make it. Sorry, I couldn't make it fit for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that kind of person. It's like, dude, I wish I could help you, but I can't do it unless it's like double the size, which you would have to wrap it around your leg a couple times.
Yeah, yeah. Alright, so you started creating these now did you I guess I would say, did you have a workshop at the time where because you were already creating the tensor rings, so you just started creating these as well?
Yes, it took me about a year and a half to actually nail down the design, and without the protective coating, because that came afterwards. Um, so we had anklets out for a while in the form of without the protective coating, and people were wearing them, loved them, and then we started getting feedback of the wear and the tear, and basically warranty all of them from workmanship. So, I mean, if you go out and beat the crap out of it, it's not going to be covered. But if it breaks in any way, shape, or form, I will replace it. Um, and that's normal. It's like, um, and from there, it was a process of creating them, allowing people to examine them, test them out, and then we were getting feedback on, um, let's say, how do you want to say it? Uh, the the effects. So we were getting more and more feedback on how it affected people. So we started getting more defined feedback.
Mhm.
And the best one we ever had was when we were at a conference in San Francisco. A lady who was very, very energy sensitive basically came in and she tried them on and she goes, "Okay, this is amazing. I visualize my energy torus. I can see it. It's like when you put the anklets on, it's like putting a cap on it at the top and bottom." Um, we've actually had a different version of it, which is actually a little bit more definitive. So what they do is it actually goes to the top of your torus and it closes down that torus opening.
Hmm.
It just closes it, just squeezes it tight. So now you have that torus still there, but
Mhm.
there's no way of energy getting in. And what it does is as it goes down through you, it forces an alignment of your chakras because of the torus is now literally collimating as tight as
Mm.
it possibly could be.
Mm.
And it keeps any energies from coming in, basically
Mhm.
turning your field into a shield.
Mhm. And, uh, what was the process then of shifting to begin to design and create the pendants? What brought that about for you?
Okay. Well, the pendants were an offshoot. So I was doing just experiments with the tensor rings, doing wire wrap with crystals in the middle. So the crystal would just hang in the middle. Um, they were beautiful and they worked wonderful. But the endurance wasn't there. It just wasn't there. Um, and what had happened is I had lent a pair of anklets to my accountant at the time, and it was right before tax time. So she's getting bombarded by everybody, and
Yeah.
everybody's upset. Everybody's mad. They have to pay taxes and all this other stuff. And of course, it's not the government that gets the brunt of it, it's the poor accountant.
Right, right.
So she was wearing him for 3 days, and she goes, "I absolutely love them," but her husband wouldn't let her wear them. He
Hmm.
goes, "What?" He goes, like, "What are those? That's just too boo woo. No, take them off." And it's like, really? Okay. And so she
Mm.
she let me know. It's like, you can come and pick them up. I can't wear them.
Mm.
So I basically got them back home, and I basically say, okay, Metatron's like, if this is supposed to help everybody to protect themselves while we go through this time, I need something that will be completely innocuous. Nobody would notice a difference whether a guy was wearing it or a girl was wearing it. It may not look great, if a guy wear it, it's like, oh, he's just kind of woo woo or whatnot. I don't really care, but it's that's a lesser stigma,
Mhm.
than people walking around with the anklets if it's something that's they're self conscious about. And that's when he basically said, "Come in and do this," and they basically
Mm.
showed me using resin, using the same crystals in a pendant.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah. And from there, it's a different type of energy. It's not the full Taurus field now. It's actually more of a body field. I know we've seen it where the chakras, you have the seven chakras, and then you see like almost like the Vitruvian man with the body straight out, well, arm straight out, and you see
Mhm.
layers of energy coming off of the physical body.
Mhm.
That's where the shielding is put in place above that energy field, right above the physical body.
Mhm. Do you mind holding, one up for us? You have one handy?
Let's see. We'll do an Archangel Michael.
Yeah. Okay. So are there well, 2 tensor rings, 3 tensor rings?
There are two tensor rings.
And
You
then
know,
plus the top of the top is, where, uh, some
yeah.
sort of, chain or string goes through. Hey, look at this. Oh, man, we're getting fancy here.
Let me get some of this other stuff out of your way. Get it right here.
Let's see, is that gold or is that copper?
That's copper.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Archangel Michael. I'm going to turn this light off because it's too bright. And then you can actually see that there.
Mhm. And so
Let's
there's
see.
crystals in the middle of the resin.
Yes.
So take us through the kind of step-by-step process of how you would create this.
Okay, so what we do is we do the copper twisting, and then we do the special cuts. So you have the two different tensor rings in there. You have the larger one, which is the outside form, and then you have another one in the inside. Those are both the same tensor ring. Those are both the lost cubit. Both so those are both working with heart energy. The Archangel Michael and the Archangel Metatron pendants have this same tensor ring, both working with heart chakra. Once those are created, it goes through a process of cleaning. So we have to actually because copper gets real dirty when it's being worked. We clean it and then we flatten it out. We re-round them. And we, of course, we weld them and then verify the roundness, verify the flatness, and then from there we do a cleaning again, a deep clean, and then from there we do a antiquing, so it turns like a darker color inside. So,
Mhm.
and this was my personal thing. I always liked it more of like a old, like a Merlin type pendant where you'd have it like an old aged copper kind of look.
Yeah.
And that's where these came from, was that look there. And we started doing that. Now we're doing um, a high polish tumbling, and we're doing the high polish so that we can actually do the gold plating. So it has to be, when you're plating, it has to be as shiny as you want the gold to be on the copper. So we have to polish the copper till it's super super shiny,
Mm.
and then we start plating from there. So we actually have the super high polished copper pendants as a product, and the gold plated product. So we're doing them in different forms, and they're all spectacular in their own right for the different looks that they provide.
Mhm. And then you choose different crystals based on the different pendants because you have different pendants named after the different archangels. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So let me go here. I'll pull that out. Put up the Metatron here. Twist that a little bit there. Okay, so that's Archangel Metatron. And Metatron has the armor set. So that has the five different crystals inside of here. Same as in the anklets, the exact same. You have the Morganite, the Tanzanite, Lapis Lazuli, Tiger Eye, and Black Onyx. Those are the five crystals. And when Metatron told me to use those crystals, I'm like, okay, I got to write that down because I've never heard of Tanzanite and Morganite. Thank you very much. And I would
Were
have never put these five crystals together to figure this out either.
were you in a meditative state? Were you on medicine or how did you hear this?
This was actually, like I said, this came through the energy healer that I was working with.
Okay, so
Came,
you kept connecting with her, not just with the anklet, but you were going back to her and then she was providing these messages in terms of the pendants as well?
No, no, this is actually the same exact crystal set that the anklets have.
Oh, gotcha.
So this
Okay.
is the
Same,
same
same.
exact tool. It's
Gotcha.
in different form.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's really nothing, nothing changing there. And what I did to actually add some fun to it for folks is I add some glow to it. So
Yeah.
right now you can't really see it great, but it's actually you got the blue on the outside and like a purple core.
Yeah.
So one of the things what we have actually learned through just experience with a lot of clients is when you're wearing them, they tend to be over your heart chakra or your higher heart, depending on where you wear it.
Mhm.
And if you do a really strong heart meditation,
Mhm.
you're pushing a lot of your energy through it. You will make it glow like I just did with the light,
Wow.
with your own energy.
Wow.
And I've had people go, some ladies actually come back and actually so it's like, "We just finished this massive heart meditation. You wouldn't believe how bright this thing's glowing." It's like I just came in from outside and they're in a basement, in a basement, a place with no lights except for ink and the fluorescent tubes.
Yeah.
So there's no way I could charge that way other than what they were doing.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it's really neat.
And then you, pour the resin
Yes.
around the, crystals.
The crystals and the powder, the glow powder in there, yes.
Mhm. Beautiful. And
Um,
is there a front and a back, so to speak, or are they both
yeah.
the same?
They are pretty much the same. You can see here where this is, I believe, the back on this one.
Mhm.
Um, Everything settles in a little bit differently. So
Mhm.
you'll depending on how we have to clean up the back of it,
Mhm.
you may end up with a little more copper exposed or it's a
Mhm.
little tweaked. And you can see that every single one is handmade. So none of them are perfect and none of them are the same. So it's when we put them out on when we go to conferences and we look at it, people it's like, "You have any more?" It's like, "No, I'm not taking out the entire inventory so you can pick and choose." Like, feel the energy of the tool because everybody could be like, "Oh, I like the purple one." It's like, "Oh, yeah, well, that's true. It looks cool."
Yeah, yeah. And are you still personally making every single one of these pendants?
As far as the copper wise, yes, and it'll shift for the crystals being set and the powder and resin being poured. It's either me or my daughter.
Mhm.
And my son Peter, namesake, actually does a lot of the actual finishing for me.
Wonderful.
Uh,
What a great family experience. That's so cool.
yes,
Yeah.
so the energy stays all in the house, and it's actually very stabilized. And they both do amazing work.
For those who don't know, are married to Vivian Chaveet. Does she do anything with this, or is she just giving her 2 cents on how it looks?
She doesn't actually give me the 2 cents until I ask for it. When it comes
Okay.
to, it's like I'll have an idea and I'll make it from an idea into a physical reality.
Mhm.
And then when it's done, I'll bring it in and I'm like, "Okay, so feel this. Let me know what it feels like. What is this thing? What is it doing?" He's like, "I can't feel it." It's like it would be like trying to hear a pin drop after being in an orchestra. It's like I've been saturated by these energies all day playing with crystals and tensor rings. I can't feel a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So I'm like, I just finished it. I'm all excited. It's like, "So what does this feel like? I can't feel a thing."
And, how do people normally wear these in terms of around the neck? Like, what type of, like, chain or string, or what do they utilize?
The ones I tried doing the vegan leathers, those dissolved very quickly, so I don't use those anymore. We've tried some of the hemp cords, but they're very aggressive, very coarse. I haven't found anything really good on that front. Um, I did find a temporary source of silk lanyards, and they were very popular, but the creator doesn't want to do them anymore. She's moved on and gone into a different direction. She's an artist, so she's moved in a different direction. So I don't really have anything per se that is more specialized for folks. The one thing that we do have is we do have leather lanyards with a chrome plated clasp, which is really easy to open and close, and it's very stable. And we pretty much stabilized at 27-inch lanyard. and it keeps it pretty much, in the right place for most people.
Beautiful. And you offer these obviously on your website
Yep.
and then at shows and expos and so forth. What are people's reactions when they walk up to your table or your booth at an expo or a show? What are people saying to you?
Well, there is a barometer. I mean, it goes from they'll pick them up, they'll look at them, it's like, "These are nice," and they'll say, "Well, how much?" It's like, "Really?" And they're not they're not energy sensitive, they're just walking around and looking at everything, and they're not really conscious. They're
Hmm.
not there yet, they're just not there. So I don't judge them in any way. It's like, these are energy tools. It's like, "Oh,"
Hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they
Hmm.
just move on.
Hmm.
The folks that are really energy sensitive are, they're drawn to the table.
Mm.
They can feel it when they come within 10, 15, 20 feet of the table.
Mhm.
So it actually turns out, really interesting,
Mhm.
to the point where they're experimenting with them. I'll walk them through the experience of the pendant.
Mm.
Um, and I tell people this all the time. It's like, you don't have to have the physical pendant. You can visualize it, go on the website and actually look at the pendant and put your hand over your heart, visualize you're wearing the pendant,
Mm.
and then the same process will continue. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, they pick up the pendant, and I tell them, "Yeah, I want you to try all of them. I don't want the one that was like, ooh, that's the shiny one. I don't. That's the only one I want to try. No, I want you to try them all."
Mm.
Um, because one of the things I've noticed throughout time is we have all these different tools, and some of them people pick them up and it's like, I can't feel a thing. It's like it's not there for me. And I'm like, that tool's not meant for you, period.
Mm.
It's just you're not ready for it, or it's not ready for you, whatever it
Mhm.
is. These are angelically guided tools. So the etheric imprint or blueprint that I'm running from has a specific designation and time frame for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, and you can't force it. You'll
Mhm.
notice it when you try them. It's amazing.
Mhm.
So I'd have them, hold the pendant up, and I tell them, okay, so tell the pendant, you don't have to say a word, just think it. Synchronize for me. And
Mm.
then the energies of it will the tool will actually synchronize to your frequency,
Mm.
because everybody's frequency is different. You may put it on and feel it right away. That's because it's that powerful, yes. But when
Mhm.
you actually synchronize it to you, now there's no disharmonic frequencies. Then you
Mhm.
tell it to reset for me. Any intentions that are on it are now wiped, which actually it's more of a mental construct. It's more of telling yourself, I want to reset any intentions I have. And then you tell it to either go to full power or your comfort level, which at that point it'll actually follow you on your energy wave. Because in the morning when you wake up, your energy is a little bit lower, you feel refreshed, but you're not at your full peak. After whether you drink coffee or not, or tea or whatever it is, usually about 10 o'clock in the morning, we're really usually at our full power. Right,
Mhm.
and then we come back down at lunchtime, go into a little bit of a food slump, and then we come back out of that, and mid-afternoon, we have a higher energy field again, and we fluctuate. We have a sine wave all day long, up and
Mhm.
down. So you tell it to follow you, my comfort level, and it will follow you all day.
Mhm. Just so people are aware of the investment regarding these, we don't need to get into specific price points because obviously price points fluctuate over time. If
Yes.
somebody's watching this 2 years from now, the prices might be a little different. But like, what's the price range for the tools that you offer?
Currently, with everything that's going on, the anklets are like 300 for the pair. The Metatron pendant starting at 350. And then when you go up through the pendants in copper form, like so, all the coppers, they're between 350 and 500. And if you go for right now, if you go for the gold, it's 850 to 1,000.
Mhm. And those are gold. It's gold plated copper. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it's gold plated. It's 24 karat gold plated, not 18 karat. 24 karat gold plated. And depending on where gold prices go, the price is going to have to fluctuate with that. So I
Of
don't know.
course. Yeah.
That's the part I'm like, oof, what's going to happen with gold? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the name of your business is Energies of Service. How did you come up with that name? What does that mean to you?
Well, I had actually started a business years ago, doing a different task, and I was like looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, I want to do this because somebody else had done something similar, and it sounded really cool." And it was more like I was following the 3D modality of what I was doing, and I wasn't really listening to myself. So, and when I started doing these tools, and after going through the books I had read to understand and the energies these were creating. Um, and actually, one of the things we hadn't talked about was when I first started creating these tools, I made a bunch of those tensor rings, these here,
Mhm.
but larger in about, this is like about 7 inches, but I made them in about 12, 13 inches and stuff like that. And I was actually bringing him to the sound bath, and she was putting them underneath the crystal bowls. And I gave her four to play with. And then she texted me 2 days later and said, "Can you give me 10 more?" It changed the energy of the bowls so much
Wow.
that it was far more powerful. The resonance was greater. They vibrated for a longer time frame. So the energy that they were generating was through the roof.
Hmm.
So I was trying to it's like with the tools coming out and listening to Slim Sperling, and these are to heal others. So it came down to being it's like, okay, so these are being energies of service. And it just came right through as, okay, well, I guess these tools are energies of service because
Wonderful.
that's what they're designed to, is to be an energy for, to be of service to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I am curious about your um, relationship with Vivian because
Yes.
obviously I've had conversations with Vivian, and she is um, just I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, if people know Vivian, she is a messenger. She is here as a guide for our planet, and you are describing yourself as more. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would just say grounded and like practical and like, what does this mean? And how are we going to get this done? And like, what was it about when you guys met? What was it about her that attracted, you to her and vice versa?
The funny thing is, it was actually the one thing that we each needed. I was very grounded, very in the 3D, very anchored in the way I was doing things. And I was exploring energy and the understandings of energy, and I was trying to understand more. And Vivian actually had a monthly or biweekly course. There was like a meditative thing that she was actually doing, and I was going to that for over a year and a half,
In person.
um, in person. Yep, in person. And since then, that particular store has pretty much shifted, and it doesn't do those things anymore. Um, but it was an opportunity at that particular time to actually be face to face, understanding meditations and going through the process with Vivian. And I mean, to me, it really wasn't necessarily the Octurians; it was more the meditations. So I was doing the meditations with Vivian, and I was doing the sound bath meditations with somebody else, um, and they were both very healing and very understanding. And coming through, I ended up, asking to teach her out, and that's how we ended up starting there, and it was really interesting. Uh, and for her, I bring in a foundation of 3D understanding, and I can interpret and filter so that she doesn't have to go into the lower 3D to help understand what is going on in the world. I can give a filtered version so that she understands what's going on without losing or reducing her frequency,
Hmm.
because her frequency is extremely high. Um, and that's where it's like one of those things. It's like for me, I have to raise my vibration, and it's like to keep things up and keep moving with everything. So it's life is not without challenges. That's a given. So for us, it was like for really interesting for me working with energy and trying to raise my vibration and keep it stable and high to keep up with Vivian. And I'm
Hmm.
still, and that's me to this day, I'm still working on that. But that's my path, that's my journey. For
Mhm.
her, I ended up being the foundation that she required to really progress in her mission per se,
Mhm.
uh, because that's where she needed somebody to be there for her and actually give her a foundation. And that's when I came in. That's when it really started to move.
Mhm. So that first time where you are thinking, okay, I'm going to ask this woman out on a date, like, were you nervous? Were you anxious?
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah, and that's the usual. That's the usual for everybody. That's not a different. There's no difference there. The nervous, is, the rejection problems. What's going to happen? It's like that kind of thing. And it was like I was at the time designing rings, like the tensor rings, but I was making finger rings, like
mm,
rings
mhm,
like that, but
mm,
out of tensor rings and actually filling with crystals and glow powder and stuff like that. And they were protective in their own right because I was using tensor rings with copper and crystals. Um, and I had made her one, and it glowed in a deep blue purple, and it was beautiful with protective crystals in it. Because as I was learning the crystals and the technology of tensor rings, I'm like, okay, if she is to be this, be the teacher, I want to see if I can give her this to help protect herself from negative energies as I was going through and dealing with all the time. So I ended up giving her one of those as well, and it was actually one of those things. It was really everything shifted from there on, of course, but I was guided to make that for her, and I was
wonderful.
actually um, from that guided mission is actually one of the tensor rings that was actually brought in for me specifically, because there's actually different tensor rings brought in by different individuals throughout, for the last 20, 30 years. This I
Mhm,
have one specifically from that came in through me for her.
mhm. And how do you guys see your service, um, like collaborating or supporting each other, or do you kind of keep them separately in terms of like your both of your missions?
We're both in the similar direction. Uh, so Vivian tries to heal people. I shouldn't say tries. Vivian heals people in a way, an energetic, holographic way. The tools I create are guided by the angels. So what they do is they help protect you and keep your frequency safe or help clear negative energies as you're going. So they work hand in hand. So if you're working on a client and they have a lot of emotional garbage and baggage they need to get rid of, you could use like a Shamuel pendant. And then as Vivian is working through some of the things that they're dealing with, the pendant will help clear at the same exact time. It's
Mhm,
more of working in concert.
mhm, mhm. So what's next for you, Peter? Like as a person who's always thinking, you're always envisioning, like what's the thing that you're, if you can talk about it, like what is it that you're excited about, interested in, playing with?
We've been in the process of making Starseed pendants. So that's the next thing that it's been in the process for over a year and a half now. So people are like, okay, anytime now. Um, the, the, the challenge with creating these pendants is making sure that when we're putting them together, the proper tensor ring is being used, the proper crystals are being used. The entire intent behind the Starseed pendant is to actually create a resonance that makes the soul feel comfortable and at home. So it's like being a fish out of water, being here on earth, dealing with
Mhm,
all this strange things, just having that energy to feel like you're back home, but you don't understand why,
mm,
but you just feel better about it and you feel more whole. It'll allow the
mhm,
star seeds to actually integrate easier. So
mm,
that's the entire intent.
mhm,
Um, so we're working on that. We have designs, we have tensor rings pulled out. We have a bunch of crystals designated, but I think we still need more refinement on symbols and light languages, depending on which race it is.
mhm. So if somebody is in the middle of kind of this awakening process and maybe they have engaged with certain tools, maybe they've got an oracle deck or they've got some crystals or, like when it comes to the resources that you're offering, what would you like, how would you consult them on going to your website? What should they be looking for? You know what I mean? Like, where should they start? What would you suggest?
Well, they need to understand, it's like, where are they in their path? Because I think when everybody, I think in general, when people start this path, it's a buffet. It literally is a buffet. There are
Can be
healers of
overwhelming.
it is so overwhelming,
Yeah.
and you have people with organite, and not to diminish any of the tools, because everybody needs something,
And everybody
and
says theirs is the best one.
they always do, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm not gonna diminish anybody's tool, because if just looking at it from a perspective of, okay, you have Reiki and all these other healers in between doing different modalities, all the way up through to, like, Vivian, what that's a super high vibration of the Arcturian healers. So you have all these people, Palladian, Orion, all these different healers doing their job. They're here to help specific people. Vivian can't heal 8.5 billion people. This is not possible. This is not possible. So that's what we're trying to say. It's like, there is healers here for everyone. There are tools here for everyone. Um, so you have to understand, it's like, what are you really looking for? For the tools that I create, it's like, do they resonate with you?
Mhm.
Does Archangel Metatron, is he your guardian, or is he your protector? That's when you start looking at, it's like, oh, maybe the Archangel Metatron pendant or the anklets are something I could really use, or Archangel Michael is my archangel. It's like, I've had people come up to me, it's like, oh, Michael is my guy, and it's like, I'm picking up that pendant, they don't even bother looking at it or feeling it's like mine, and they just walk, it's like, oh, thank you, and they love it, and they may not even understand the full meaning of what they just picked up. And this is where I walk through people with the process of feeling each pendant, and even visualizing it from a distance on the website. You can feel what they can do. It's not going to be as potent as it would be inside of your field, the real deal, but you can actually hold it there as long as you hold your intention. So you can understand what it will do with you and for you. Some of the pendants are very challenging, like the Archangel Shamuel. If you've gone through any emotional traumas or damage or anything like that, or dealing with PTSD, and you put that on, yeah, you could be, you'll be in the corner crying, and that's intentional. You have to let those energies out,
Mm.
because your body will store it in a place where it'll actually be safe. It's not going to store it in your main organs and all that stuff, because that energy will diminish those organs, because it's negative. It's not, let's just say, it's not necessarily negative energy. It's like, it's an emotion, but that emotional energy stuck in an organ will diminish its efficiency.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be there. So that's why you have a lot of people with hips and knees and ankles and elbows and shoulders and neck, and non-detrimental parts of your body where you have an issue.
Mhm.
This is your energy being stored in your body, because your body's a lot smarter than I am and you are. It knows how to deal with energy. So it puts it in places it's not going to hurt you.
Mhm.
So this energy needs to come out. So the pendants will do this for you.
Mhm.
Um, so if you're dealing like with Shamuel, emotional energy will start being pulled out. If it's on the surface, you'll end up starting to feel very emotional right there on the spot. Um, Other than that, if you have other stuff that's actually a lot deeper, I tell people, it's like, put it on. When you're in a safe place, tell it to go to full power, and then let the movie reel go. Because the movie reel will start coming through, the emotions that'll start coming up. That one day with that person, or that accident I had, or that event that I witnessed, whatever it is, that'll start coming up. And then you just start asking, it's like, do I still need to hold on to that energy?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
it's like, if you do the test, it's like, if it's no, then it's like, then pull it out by its roots now. And you will feel the energy being pulled out of different areas of your body that you had no idea where that energy was being stored.
Mhm.
That's how you know that you're storing emotional energy in places you shouldn't be.
Mhm. Amazing. Peter, where can people check out the tools, purchase the tools, both on your website, social media? How can they connect with you even in person?
Absolutely. Well, Vivian and I travel the world, so follow Vivian's event calendar, and we can actually, on energy or Infinite Healing from the Stars, or the Arcturian University. You'll find us there for the events. That way, you can actually see things and feel things in person, if we're traveling in your area. Other than that, we have Sedonia up in Sedona. They have inventory on site, and people can go and experience them in person there. We have some at Observer Ranch in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We have some in Sydney, Australia. We have some in, I think it's outside of London in UK. All these places we're going to have linked up on the website just so you can actually find them. And we're looking at actually bringing some into Japan.
Amazing. And
Um,
where can they find your website, your social media, so they can buy directly on your site?
Correct. Okay. So my website is energiesofservice.com. And you can find pretty much everything else with social media, just searching for Energies of Service, like on Twitter or Facebook, YouTube, X's, I think Energies O Service or something like that, because I couldn't get the oven there. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, but it's up in there. We have all things up there posted up. Um, we're working on some new videos and some new content as well. Uh, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, so we're trying to keep everything in wraps and working it all. Um, but the best part is, it's like if you can do the visualizations and then see if it's actually stuff for you, by all means, get a hold of us. You can connect with me through the website. There's a connect with me portal on there, and we can actually work out, either like I'll send you a video link so that you can actually understand how to do the process, or you can actually go to one of the local stores and actually test them out.
Wonderful. Peter, thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom. Thanks for what you're doing in the world. I just admire your journey and how you are creating these different resources and tools. So, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.